We are today going to get an introduction to iWeb. And iWeb is a very simple website and web page design program that's in the suite of programs that Apple offers. And I'll reiterate that when you work with a museum, if you have a budget for an iMac, I strongly suggest going with iMac over a PC. Although I was brought up on PCs, I build them, I repair them, and I continue to use them. For something that has the best hardware and least expensive software available, it is the iMac. So if you buy a PC, I might have used this analogy earlier in the semester, that in the same way if you, I know with men, for example, when I buy a razor, the razor is cheap. It's the blades that you pay for. And when you buy a printer, the printer's dirt cheap. It's the toner that you pay for. With a PC, the computer's cheap. It's the programs you pay through the nose for. As compared to with the Mac initially is expensive, but the software afterward is dirt cheap compared to what you see on the PC for types of things that we would accomplish in digital curation. And so, for example, if you buy the Adobe Creative Suite, you're going to pay at least $600. And it will give you Dreamweaver, InDesign, Photoshop, Illustrator, but it's a very expensive package. Something that can do something very similar would be using your iMac, where you could use either iWork and iLife. Will give you a lot of the same types of things that you can accomplish for the scale or the level of use that you need as a curator. So I strongly suggest investing in the hardware, which is an iMac, as compared to the software that you would with a PC. So on your menu then, what you're going to do is you are going to go to your applications and scroll down until you see iWeb. What I've done is I've actually held the left mouse button down and I've dragged it down into my menu at the bottom. And then click on iWeb. And it will present you with a set of templates. And once again, a template is a pre-designed layout that you just drag and drop and then later on modify content. So it gives you different types of templates, and it also gives you color schemes. So it starts off with the white color scheme, black, leaf print, which is a slight green color in the background, gives you headers and footers. These are all pre-designed templates, or you could design your own. I would strongly suggest staying away from things like comic book, because if you look like a comic book in the professional world, people don't take you seriously. But you would find one of my favorite ones, actually, because I do so much photography, and a lot of what you're doing in the museum business is related to the visual presentation of images. Darkroom is one of the ones that I really prefer. So I'll start with, but you can see there's quite a few templates. These templates are not editable in the sense that you cannot change the template itself. You can modify the content within. So if I click the Darkroom template, once I click Choose, it is going to set up a very basic website for me. However, the website that it sets up is only the website. It is residing on your computer. It's not on the web. In order to have it on the web, you actually have to buy a parking place. It's kind of like you have a car and you're living in New York City. Right? And if you've ever lived in New York City and you've got a car, you realize that you're better off not owning a car. Because you pay as much to park that car as you do for rent. It's expensive. So you got to have a place to park this. So all you've got is the car right now sitting in your computer. You need to buy the garage now. And your garage also has to have a name. Right? So, for example, apple.com, that is a domain. So you would have to have a domain name, a place where your website resides. So you would think of, for example, we could say powwow.com is a web name, so that when people type in powwow, that would come up in the search engine. By the way, that's already taken. You're not gonna find that one available. But you find a unique web name so that when people are coming, when they type that into the URL resource locator, that is what would come up. They would come instantly to your site. So you would actually have to buy the name, and then you have to buy the place to put it. Because anything that you would generate with iWeb, your website, would then be uploaded to that place so that people would be able to find it. So all you're doing right here is creating the website. It's not going to be online until you buy a domain. Now, one of the things that Apple does is that you can buy a domain through them. And there are advantages and disadvantages to it. Because Apple has a vast networking system. So when people are at apple.com and they're typing in various things that relate to your domain name or the content or the tags that you have, you'll come up in the Apple search engine. But Apple compared to Google, Google is the #1 search engine on earth. What's the #2 search engine? Because if you find a name, you want to have it not only for your website, you want to have it where else? What's the #2 search engine behind Google? YouTube. So when you set up a website, you want to make sure that you have a YouTube channel of the same name. And that will guarantee that your name will appear in the 2 most used search engines on the planet. So what it's given you with that template, it's really just a page design. So you see the header here, you see images, and they're all editable. You have text, and you'll note that the text is that Greeked in, they call it text. Now what's wonderful here is that suppose, because Evan's World I don't want to use, all right, so I'm going to call this, I'm going to use that art in the raw. Now you'll note that although I was typing lowercase, it came in all caps. That's because this is a template and it has pre-designed formats. Remember in InDesign where you can create the various parameters? Your style sheets, do you remember those? You had a style sheet for section headings, style sheet for labels, style sheets. Those were all style sheets. This is a style sheet. So you can't change. You can hold the lowercase down all you like. It's still going to come out all caps. And you'll note that even though I can go down, so if I right-click on Raw and I do Show Fonts, I'll show all fonts. I can change that to some degree. So suppose I want to change it to, once again, I want to use a sans serif. So I'm going to change it to Arial Narrow. And I've still got it on regular. I can change the type size, but it's still all caps. I can also we've got an image here, the one of the trees. Come on, Steve. Collapse that. I can drag an image from a folder, place it to that box. Wham! There it is. I mean, is that amazing or what? I mean, this slices, it dices, it makes mountains of coleslaw. You'll wonder how you ever lived without this. All right? And this saves you all of the headache of having to figure out, because it actually preordains the image dimensions and automatically optimizes that photo for deployment on the web. Because you might have noticed sometimes if you've gone to an image on the web and you want to save it, and it takes like an hour and a half to save it because it's a mammoth file off of Flickr. And if you were to put that same file on a web page that you design yourself, your page is going to take forever to load unless you optimize it for the web. But what iWeb does is it automatically optimizes it for you. So it does the dimensions as well as the quality of the image. So I could go through, and now I haven't done any of the touch-ups on here, but I could drop an image in there. But you'll note, because I haven't done any of the adjustments, and it's putting it into, I'm trying to put a vertical image into a horizontal space, it's not really working well. But I could delete the images underneath by highlighting and then going to the image above and adjusting slightly, but still, because I'm trying to put a vertical image or a portrait image into a landscape format, that won't work. And anything that I've done, I can also undo by hitting Command Z. So to some degree, you want to pay attention to the orientations of whether it's landscape or portrait of the images that you're trying to include. And also, because these placeholders are square, you want to make sure that your image that you're working with could be square, or for that matter, rectangular. So but that's a simple way, and see, I want to get that image out of there. It's a simple way to start adding images. And then, if I want to add text, let's see if I can find a document. Oh yeah. So what's wonderful about this too is that whether you're working in Notepad, in Microsoft Word, or Apple, what's the name of Apple's word processor? Dang, I'm brain dead this morning. Stop that. By highlighting the text in my word processor, oh, Pages, that's what it's called. Oh, crap. I can take that text and should be able to drag it right in. Oh, I dragged it in as a text box. Sorry about that. Oops. And Z. Give me just a second here. I can move the text around that's already there. I'm maxing out the RAM here. Give me just a second. Can create my own new text box instead. So I can either create a new one or by copying mine. I can copy the text in from my own word processor and then highlight it. Change the font. So I right-clicked on the text that I added. I can show the fonts. Change it to Arial, for example. Arial regular. I want to change the text color, so I can go through and move the little color box around. I can change the size. It works much like a word processor. So what I've done is I've altered the header on the page, a title, with some text in. I could have other descriptive text or not. If there's something I don't want there, I just highlight it and I delete. But that's only one page so far. There are other things that I could do. They call them widgets. These are things where if people click on them, they will take them to some other place. Right now, we're not going to worry about widgets. So I've got one web page so far. What do you think I would do to add another web page? Yes, I click Add Page. So when I click Add Page, it drops down and then shows me the kinds of pages I could add within the template that I've chosen. And it's a good idea to stay within that template, because if you change the template, when people are clicking on different links in your web page and all of a sudden they get something that looks entirely different from that template, they're going to think they went to another website. So you want to maintain a consistency. So I could turn it from the welcome, and I'm going to choose instead this time to photos. So when I click, and each of these is going to be different because photos is going to present something entirely different than movie. So I'm going to start with photos first. So when I click choose, a new page has been added. And so you'll now see that at the very upper left-hand side of the menu, I've got the welcome page, and now I've got photos. And they are linked to each other. And at the top then is a menu bar. It's not active in the layout format, but if we published it, this menu bar would be active. I can also change where it says welcome, I could change it to Art in the Raw. When I do so, you'll note that where it used to say home, it now says art in the raw. Where it says photos, I could, by right-clicking, I could change it into exhibit photos. And a change to exhibit photos in the upper menu. So then, going back to my folder that I had, am I moving too fast? I've had like 3 cups of coffee already today, and that's just got one eye open. I don't want to unleash the other eye on the world until after class. So I could go to catalog images. I could drag another horizontal orientation. And in essence, what I'm doing with each new one that I drag up there, I'm creating somewhat of a slideshow that also has an RSS, which means that people who want to come back and view whatever new things you put up would be able to do so. Anytime you change your website, this would automatically let them know that you've made some type of change. So I'll go back, I'll grab another photo. I'll go back and grab another photo. The reason you see your name here on here, Delene, is because I saved that card images that you had on your camera. So I've just kept dragging photos onto here. I could do them globally and highlight a bunch of them, or only one at a time. Oh, I did the same one again. I'll delete that one. I can also change, because what I have now, because it's a photo grid, I have an album style. I could do things, you'll notice it says photo grid. I could make it so they all have a border, so they all have a frame around them, and it even gives a beveled frame look to them. I can decide, do I want maybe just 2 columns instead of 3? Or do I want 4 columns? I can also change the space within each, which in essence gives them a look about the thumbnails. I could have it so the captions, because I can actually go in with the captions too, and put, I can't remember what this one called, I'm just going to call it Earth by now, by Alien. So I can change the captions, because, I mean, when someone is at your website and they say the DSC, 0486, what the hell is that? So you can take your labels, you can actually go in and you can decide whether they have 2 or 3. All right, I've got 2 caption lines. I can bring that as many caption lines as I want. So I could have 3 caption lines, acrylic, acrylic on canvas. I'm going to go back and I'm going to change it to 3. So I now have art in the raw, exhibit photos. I could go in and change this. These are the works that are featured in the art in the raw X hit it. Now, if there's something I don't want, suppose I don't want it to have an RSS. I don't have much choice because it's a part of the preordained part of the template. However, if I don't want made on a Mac to appear because it's taking up web page space, I could highlight it and delete. There are some things in the style sheet that you cannot alter, and there are some things that you can. And once again, if I decide I want it to I own stock in Mac, so I want people to see it was made on a Mac, Command Z and it reappears. So I now have two web pages, the home page, Art in the Raw, exhibit photos. And I decide that I want to add another page because this page is going to have a movie that I created. So I click Add Page, and if I look through here, okay, there are different things that I could either do it as movie or podcast. So I'll decide I'm going to do movie instead. So when I click Choose, it added the new page that reads movie upstairs here in the upper left in the menu. And I instead am going to put exhibit opening night. It added a new menu item, exhibit opening night. Now I've got a movie here, but I don't want to show somebody else's movie. I'm showing something from Art in the Raw. Now I don't know if I have any movies on here. Just give me a second. I'll try the untitled MP4. Well, I'll be darned. All right, I've got it in an MP format. So I've just added a movie just by dragging it in there. So now I have 3 pages. But it's not Evan's World. Opening night. By the way, as an artist, if you do, in a fit of madness, decide you want to pursue 2 or 3-dimensional arts, along with being a curator, this is an excellent way to highlight your work. I'm not sure if I mentioned in the beginning of the semester that you can have a gallery represent you, and the gallery gets commission. Or you can represent yourself, and then through social marketing, access markets that the gallery is also marketing too. Or you can do it in conjunction with. All right, and this text here, also you can change the movie description. And suppose, let's see, do I have the sound turned up? So you're really a curator. Your background is going to include academic studies, practical experience, degrees, See, do I have another movie on here? Just give me a second here. I thought I did. How to build a... hell. Find another movie.
Okay, I'm finished with my animation. I did add one more piece. So the whole thing right now ends.
Drag down. I can add another movie. It gives me the little queue up lines so I can make them in conjunction with everyone else. I realize I don't want the little made on a Mac now. So I'm going to delete that. I've added another movie. I can go to Insert, Text Box, Move that text box. Line it up with my other label here. So I now have two different movies on this page. And decide, well, I want to add another page. It could be audio files. I could go back, click on podcast, click choose. This could be movies or audio. But suppose I don't want the podcast, all I got to do is Command Z. I might want, what the hell is that? Oh, it might be my email. Sorry about that. I want to add another page. Every time I add a page, or I might want something just completely blank. Or I may have photo albums or about me this time. So I click choose. It adds about me. I right click and I could change it to curator's statement. Now I have image placeholders that I can drag content into, as well as the biographical information that I could alter. And any of these are editable too. And that text box is removable. But now all of these are editable. They are all connected to each other in the menu. Now I want to see how this looks. I want to make sure that I've saved my design, and then I want to publish site changes. This is the mobile me, all right, where you can publish that kind of stuff, and you can try it free for 60 days, and then you pay for the to have mobile me covering your website. I click no thanks because I don't want to do that. If I've done any type of simple changes, I can publish site changes. That's if I have a place on mobile me. Why? Oh, I forgot, I got my email still open. But if I want to preview how it looks, by going back to the original where it says site in the upper left, I could call this Art in the Raw. Instead of publish to mobile me, because that'll be the default. I'll do that again. I clicked on the original index page, which said site, but I've changed it to Art in the Raw. When I click there, it brings me to default setting. Instead, I'm going to click local folder because I'm trying stuff out. I could put a contact email. Location. When I click on location, I'm going to save it to my documents. So that's where this is going to reside until I decide to host it somewhere. So when I click choose, it's now going to save it to documents. Or if I already have a domain showing. So for example, when I teach online classes, my domain name is nativeamericanpodcasts.com. That's where I store all of the things that I use in my online classes. So if you've ever had an online class with me and I'm ranting and raving from nativeamericanpodcasts.com. So that is my URL. But I'm not using a website, so I've decided it's going to be to this folder location. So now, once I've changed those defaults, when I click Publish Site down below, and I click continue, it's saving it to Art in the Raw. And then once it's done that, I can click Visit Site Now. And it will open it up in a browser window, but this browser is only on my computer. It's not on the web. And you can see here where it should have shown